So now it's time to work on our emails. Finally, we got to this point. I love it because I love emails and I love the concept of connecting to our audience, to our people. And so let's keep this simple. You know, email marketing can be a very complicated system, especially for e-commerce. So if you want to really get into that, you can take courses specifically on email marketing for e-commerce. But I like to keep things simple, and this program is all about getting results without going crazy, right? So we're going to work on campaigns, and I'm going to share with you the ones that we're going to use, and there are plenty. They're enough for you to do great, but make sure you implement what I'm sharing with you, because it's again about consistency and about how you do, so you learn, get data, and then you keep working on to better the process, okay? So we're gonna see different types of emails, okay? And the first one is promotional emails, okay? Promotional is easy to understand what it means, right? So basically it's when you sell stuff, when you make offers. Every time you wanna get something in exchange, if you're giving them something and expect them to give something back to you, that's a promotional, because you're selling, you're promoting something, and it could be sales or it could also be pre-sales, right? Because for our campaigns, for our drops, the pop-ups, we're gonna do a pre-promotion. So promotional emails are those that people don't like to get much. Some companies, some creators, some business people use a lot of those, and we're going to use them very strategically, so then we don't get unsubscribers like crazy, okay? There's always going to be unsubscribers because people just get sick of us, or they just are annoyed that day and they don't want to see the email, but don't worry about it. It's normal. Let them go, get new people, okay? The other type of email we're going to see is the engaging email, right? So it's when you offer something, when you ask something, when you get their response, something that makes them engage with you, similar to Instagram posts and stuff like that. And this kind we usually have in the newsletter, right? When you give inspiration, when you start conversations, they respond. And the one thing I'm going to talk about throughout this training, and you should always keep in mind, is that engaging emails and the newsletter and all that, you should always write in order for them to feel like me too. That's why I put me too. So that's about when they read something and they feel they're understood, right? They be like, oh yeah, me too. You say that it's really hard to find a pair of pants that fit me, that are not so basic and boring. And you say that and they're like, yeah, I agree, me too. I have a hard time finding this. Or like, I love having a lot of plants, but it's so expensive to have a gardener. Or you say, it's so good to have plants, but you have to know how to display them well. Otherwise, it's just a mess in your house, in your apartment. And they're like, yeah, me too. I made a mess in my apartment. Okay, so those are emails that they feel like you guys are in the same boat, us, right? Like the creator and them is in the same boat, in the same experience, because they're like, yeah, I want to be part of this group, of this community, okay? All right. The other type is transactional, and that's very obvious and simple. You don't worry about it, but sometimes you can do upsells on those transactions, but it's basically when you send a receipt, they buy something, then the receipt is sent automatically, or if you ask them to renew something, or upsell, some stuff like that, okay? It's about the transactions, okay? And we're gonna work with a few types of campaigns. And the first email we're gonna have to send is the auto response, right? So then you sense that, yes, you got it. If you're doing lead magnet, you're offering some deliverable, or they just join your waiting list, then you respond to the email saying that, yes, you got it, you're on the waiting list, I'll notify you, or here you go, get the deliverable here. This email basically is to remind them why they are there. Remember, they have to know why they're there every time. So you let them know. You're not gonna say, you were here because of this. You get it, right? You're just gonna tell them what that is about. And so they remember, they're like, oh yeah, that's right. Because what happens is sometimes, say like you're on the go and you see a lead magnet, they're like, oh, I like that. And then you just sign up for it, and then all of a sudden your friend calls or something happens that you don't really look at your email right away, but then the person who sent you the deliverable sent the email, and then you're just going to see it later or maybe even tomorrow. If you are not reminded why you got that email, you don't even remember the person's name, what the hell that is, right? So that's why we must tell them why that is, what happened, okay? The auto response is basically about that. Then we go to the welcome sequence, right? And the welcome sequence is where you tell them what's gonna happen. And look, I'm gonna share with you campaigns. We're gonna go through every email and I'll share with you everything that you have to write on those emails, but I'm just giving you an overview for now. And a welcome sequence is the next thing. So they get an auto response, and then that triggers a welcome sequence, which I'm calling a bonding bridge, because it's basically like you take somebody from not knowing you at all and take them over this bridge that is a sequence of emails, and when they read all of them, they're bonded with you. That's the idea, okay? So that's the bonding bridge sequence. And there are things that you say there that will make them interested in the next one, and they might not bond with you, right? They might be like, oh, this is not for me, and they leave, that's fine. But the ones who are gonna bond with you, they're gonna stay there, and eventually they'll buy from you, okay? So there are things that we write on the sequences, and there are different routes you can take with that, but it's basically how to make people bond with you, okay? Then we're gonna talk about the newsletter, right? That's the monster in the room. I know no one likes to send newsletters, but the newsletters is very important, and I'm calling it crush letters because I think it's a more fun way to call so you remember. So think about how when you date somebody, or when you meet somebody, right? You meet them and they get your phone number, you get their phone number, and then you're gonna communicate with them. So the first time, say you meet them at a bar and you're gonna talk to them and they're gonna tell you certain things, that's the auto response, right? You say hi, they tell you about some stuff, then you go different ways, but you keep each other's contact and then you send emails. The emails are the welcome sequence, which is the bonding bridge, is the first ones. It's light, but you tell about yourself. You don't go too deep on anything. You just like explain things, and you might tell stories from the past and stuff like that, right? So then you get bonded with that person. They might not like you and they might leave you, but they might like you. They might like the stories. They'd be like, yeah, me too, I'm like that too. Oh my God, she is weird. Oh my God, okay, interesting. This woman's strange. I'm trying to understand more. So they are interested in the next message. When your bonding bridge sequence ends, they get into the crush letters. And I'm calling crush letters because it's like you still have a crush on that person, but you're still not married to them. You still didn't get like a real date with them. So it's just like crush letters that you keep sending until they go out with you or they marry you or something. Marry is kind of like like strong, but you know, when they buy from you, it's something that converts, right? It's a conversion. So then, you know, you send those crush letters, and the crush letter is something that should be consistent, updated, and you know, interesting. So then otherwise they're like, oh, this person is boring, right? So you always have to give things to this person in order to like lure them, right? They'd be like, yeah, everything I learned about her is great. And now like, wow, also that, oh, okay, now she's sending me this. Okay, cool, then she offered me something free, oh, okay. And then after a while you ask them to go out with you and they're like, yeah, of course I'm going out with them. And going out is a conversion, okay? So that's what I'm calling crush letters. So you have to have the auto response when you first meet them and they give you the contact. Then you have the bonding bridge, that's like one sequence that it's just like, it's well thought, so then makes them really interested in you. And if it hasn't converted yet, you can, you know, in the welcome sequence, you can try to convert, because if it's something cheap, if it's something easy, which people like to say that in marketing, right? Like how it's just inviting for a coffee. Say like that person lives next door, like very nearby, and during the welcome sequence, the bonding bridge, you just be like, would you like to go for a coffee? A coffee for afternoon is nothing harsh, right? It's nothing like compromising, right? So they might accept there, but they might say no, but they also didn't leave you, they didn't like unsubscribe. So you keep going, and then you start sending the crush letters. You might send crush letters for years until they go out with you. But here and there, within the crush letters, you ask them to go out. And eventually they'll say yes. Or if after a while they haven't gone out with you yet, then you delete their information because you're paying for them to be in your list. Okay, so it's not exactly like a crush, but if you had to pay for all the crush you have, you'd get rid of some, right? Does that make sense, right? Then, okay, you're sending the crush letters and it's going. You're always sending, trying to get dates, you know. And then eventually you're like, okay, now it's time to get like a really invite them seriously to do something. So you prepare this event. It's like you're gonna throw a party, right? And in that party, you're gonna try to go out with them or do something with them at the party or at the end of that party. And that's when we do a campaign. And the campaign we're gonna do first is the shop drop, right? And how that goes is you just write the campaign, which has a pre-launch sequence. So it's a pre-party, right? You're gonna tell them like, look, at that day, I'm gonna have that party. So for 7 days or even more, but not much more than 7, 10 is the max. We do the sequence and every day you're reminding them of the party, right? You first invite them and then you keep reminding them and then you throw the party and then everyone shows up at the party. So our party is gonna be about 5 days. It's our shop drop, right? Or a pop-up. And in those days, you keep asking them out. So you ask them, you offer until you stop. Then after that, you go back to the crush letters. So whoever you dated on those days at the party, great. Those are your conversions. And then after that, you just go back to the crush letters until you throw another party. Okay, that's basically what we do. And the last campaign that I'm gonna share is the re-engaging campaign. So you send the bonding bridge, you sent the crush letters, you threw parties, you invited them, you did everything, they never showed up, they never respond, they never engage, they don't care, but they're just there, taking space in your list. What do? Then we start a campaign to ask them, are you sure you wanna be friends with me? Because I haven't seen you, you don't interact. If you don't wanna be friends anymore, I'm just gonna get rid of you. That's basically what it is, which is called the list cleaning, right? You go and do a little campaign for a few days, ask them if they don't want to be there, they don't want to be there. If they don't, then you just delete. You don't need to really delete their emails. You can download, take out of your service provider because then you don't have to pay for those. And then you just keep getting new people, new crush. So then, you know, eventually you get them to convert. Okay, so those are the campaigns that we're gonna work on. It's simple. I'm gonna share with you all those emails, everything that should be written in the emails. I'll give you templates and explain what each one means. And then you can just make them your own. You just edit a little bit and start working on your email marketing. That's very, very effective. And if there's one thing in this whole program that you should take very seriously, is this part, okay? So I'll see you in the next video.